Welcome to Good Books Lately. My name is Taylor.
I'm Brandon.
And we are here to share with you a reading update. It has been a long time. A month. Well, that's actually not as long as I thought. I thought it had been longer than that. I think the last time we uploaded a video was what?
October 2nd or 1st.
Wow. And
it's over a month.
Over a month.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Well, we're back and we've got some things to share with you guys.
Yeah.
Brandon has way more to share because he's just an
I'm
overachiever.
I'm scaling it down. I'm just the more recent.
Yeah, what he's about to share with you today isn't anything compared to what he's read. It's just lots. Yeah. Whereas I am going to share with you what I have read since we've last visited. And it's been great. So the way that our videos work, if you're new here, and if you are new here, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
But we have a few different segments. We start with our Done and Dusted, which is books that we've finished.
Yep.
And then we move on to Bookmarked.
That's the books we're currently reading, have bookmarks inside of.
In them.
Yeah.
And then we do our compelling pickups. Sometimes we do compelling pickups. Today we are doing them. Sometimes we do other things.
Yeah. Usually book related.
And then we are doing our quote of the day. Quote of the day.
From a book we've read recently.
Yes.
That we thought was cool.
Yes. And also, just to get it out of the way, the washing machine is going. It's on the spin cycle right now.
And our kids are playing outside with the neighbors. And so it's just
and the kids are outside. Yeah. You're going to hear children in the distance.
It's all good.
Our kids play outside, which we love. So you might hear that. So, okay.
All right. We want to get into it?
Start. We are wearing lots of orange salmon today. Yeah. Didn't plan this. There's a child in our backyard. They just, we have the house on the street where all the kids converge. So like when it's like morning and it's the weekend, all the kids converge on our house. And there's just one of our neighbor children just walking through our backyard. I mean, we know who she is. She's our next door neighbor, very close to the family, but still, she's just walking through our backyard. Okay, fine. It's a good thing we don't have any like power tools out in the open. We got to get into it. All right. Do you want me to start?
Sure. Go ahead and knock it out.
Okay.
What are you starting with? What do you hit?
Done and Dusted.
Done and Dusted.
I'm starting with one of my favorite reads of the last...
Yeah, you enjoyed this.
I really enjoyed this. This was so good. And this was my first independent foray into the kingy, the Kingster himself.
Mr. King.
Stephen King.
Yeah.
I finished Salem's Lot by Stephen King. I started reading this. I don't remember when I started reading this. I want to say it was October. Like October, because I wanted to read it for spooky season. And I loved it.
Yeah,
this was fantastic.
You enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What were you going to say?
I said you gave it to your mom afterwards.
I did. I let my mom borrow it, and she finished it, which is good because I needed it back for the video. But I really enjoyed this. So it's a vampire story, and it takes place in a place called Jerusalem's Lot in Maine. Now, when I started reading this, I didn't notice the apostrophe at the beginning of Salem's. You see it there? I just thought it was Salem, and spooky, paranormal, maybe Salem, Massachusetts.
Right.
No, that's not what it is. It's short for Jerusalem's Lot, which is kind of like like a country town in Maine, where some, sketchy things. I just saw her walk by too. I have no idea what's going on. But where some sketchy things are going on, happens to be vampires.
Yeah.
It's super spooky. I loved every single character. It's loaded with just fantastic, memorable characters. And I don't know. And there was something cozy about the book. It's creepy.
Right.
And it's unsettling. You haven't read it yet.
No, I haven't read it, but I want to.
Yeah, it's creepy, it's unsettling, but there's something that just makes you feel cozy about it. The washing machine is just like, it's like a car wash.
Oh yeah. It's going through.
It's a great book. The vampire part of it is fantastic. If you really love those like traditional spooky vampire vibes, and kind of like I don't know, like, traditional vampire stories. Like, this is very good for that. Right. Okay, so anyway, the vampire vibes in this book are just fantastic. Yeah. The story is so good. It was one of those books where, like, when there's not a sequel to this or anything, but when it's over, you kind of wish there was. You're not ready to leave the world.
That world,
yeah, super cozy. Really, really loved this.
Was it what you were expecting out of a Stephen King book?
I feel like with my only other experience with Stephen King being fairy tale, that I feel like my expectations for like a traditional classic Stephen King, which is what this is, might have been different. But I know enough about what you've read and the way you describe certain things that I feel like, I thought this was, okay, everybody was telling me, not everybody, but a lot of people were telling me like it's... they're just like, it's super spooky, one of the scariest Stephen King books they've read. I didn't get that. I mean, it's very suspenseful and spooky, but not scary. I didn't think it was scary, but it was definitely spooky. I don't know. I just loved it. I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. I thought it was great.
Are you going to pick up another Stephen King?
So I have Cujo and I have The Shining. And the reason why I purchased those, will you get up again and go grab them for me? Because I wanted to share the covers. They have these awesome covers. The Shining is the same kind of cover as this one in terms of the style, and I think the publisher is vintage. Cujo is different though, but they were both really cool. Yeah, Cujo's not the same. So, okay, so I got The Shining and I really want to read The Shining. Now, our neighbor and dear friend, he is a huge Stephen King fan. He's like read all of them. And he says that The Shining is genuinely terrifying. Like it's just super scary. And so I believe him when he says that because he's not easily, I don't think he scares easily, but he loves Stephen King. So I really want to read The Shining. Gorgeous cover. I mean, look at, like you can see the face in the sleet coming down. It's just in the hotel, the Overlook Hotel or Overlook. Yeah, Overlook. Because I've seen the movie. And then Cujo, different publishing company, but how cool is that cover?
Fierce.
So good. So anyway, I do really want to read another Stephen King, and I keep feeling compelled to read The Shining.
You should.
Like now.
Why not?
I don't know.
What's holding you back? It's
Nothing.
some winter
Absolutely.
vibes.
It is winter. That's a great reason to do it. But I loved it. It was great. 5 stars. Salem's Lot by Stephen King. Are you ready?
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So my next done and dusted, or my first done and dusted, I guess, is I started November off.
Pop it over a little more. There you go.
As a non-fiction November.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I should do that too.
Because I'm
virtuous of you.
But I also like to read nonfiction already, so it wasn't like anything like I'm struggling to do or forcing myself to do. It's just kind of, this book walks you through a series of brutal murders that occur in Florence between like the 70s, maybe or late 60s through to the like mid 80s. Florence is very Catholic and whatever, and so you can't really like take your date out alone, or you live with your parents until you're
very
older.
conservative.
Yeah, very conservative. So you had to go somewhere to have some time with your loved one, and so there's a lot of these.
Watch the submarine races, as my high school girlfriend's dad used to say.
Yeah, and so they do this all the time, and there was apparently this killer that was preying on these couples, as well as the investigation into how they are trying to solve this case or find the killer. 2 authors, Douglas Preston and Mario Spezzi.
And the Preston guy.
He's Preston in Child.
Hold it back up there a little bit. My face was in the way.
So they decide to write this book, and as they do, they realize that maybe the killer that they think they caught wasn't really the killer, and that they think it's somebody else. But because of like kind of the corruption that the political / legal system and police system is in Italy, they start to become like suspected of being a part of it too, and it's really weird, but really compelling. I loved it. I flew through it.
You did read this so fast.
Yeah, and I didn't think I was. I thought it was going to be one of those things I can kind of take my time with. But once I got reading, it was really, I just became interested in Douglas Preston because of this. Yeah, I loved it. 5 stars. Yeah. If you enjoy nonfiction, you enjoy true crime, highly recommend.
I like it.
Yeah.
Very good.
All
right, my next one.
What you got?
All right, my next one is, I don't remember when I started. I started this one before we went to Santa Fe.
Yeah,
or I took it with me.
For a while.
Yeah, so I had been reading this for a while. Do you think we need to tell them to go scream someplace else? Okay, so my next book is The Golem and the Jinni, and this is by Helen Wecker. In your pretty face, there you go. Love this. This book.
I got some cool like lighting going on in my.
Oh, look at that! Like, should I close these? That's okay, right?
Yeah, it looks great.
All right, cool. All right, so this is a fantastic book. I really enjoyed this. This fall. Okay, so I know I got really excited. I guess
beat up.
It's really beat up. I don't know what on earth. I think it's because it was in backpacks and traveling. Yeah.
Yeah, multiple destinations.
This one. So it follows the main character. There's like 2 main characters, co-main characters. And the first main character that you meet is actually created. She is a golem. So a golem in Jewish culture is a person that is made from clay. And they kind of are made
protector.
Yeah, essentially. But sometimes that can backfire depending on how they are created. My understanding of this is very surface level and based on this book alone. So if you are Jewish or know about this, I'm sure I'm not covering all that. Yeah. But it's really interesting. So this character is made as like a female companion or potentially a wife to a man in the beginning of the book. Some things happen. She ends up in New York City, and she's kind of alone until she gets taken under the wing of a rabbi.
Yeah.
And her story unfolds in New York City. Well, at the same time, a Jinni that is in a bottle is found and brought to New York City and pawned and then purchased or gifted to a person who, you know, like how the stories of a Jinni in the bottle, usually the person like just happens to clean the bottle and here comes a Jinni. It's kind of like that. Yeah. And then this Jinni is with this other person he's kind of taken under the wing of this man and begins to work almost like as an apprentice, and he has to get used to the idea of living in New York City but kind of being free of his previous situation. Right. And then in the story, these two people meet eventually, but it takes a little while. And while it takes a while for them to meet, because you know they're going to, because of the story, you're the whole time you're like thinking, like, when are they going to meet? When are they going to meet? This is going to be great. And you're enjoying their separate stories. Yeah. And so then when they meet, you almost enjoy everything more. But the whole time, the Jinni's backstory is being told to you, which is really compelling because you don't really know where that's going. The Golem doesn't have a backstory, so she's just kind of developing her story, and some things are happening around her that are obviously going to be awkward because of her nature. Yeah. You know? It's fascinating. It's beautifully written. It's a first novel for this author, and it blew my mind. Yeah. I just thought it was just so well written. You feel like you're in really good hands with this writer when you're reading the story. You just feel like, oh, this is so good. It ended really well, and there's a second one. Yeah. And I did not immediately start reading the second because I felt like it was so good that I wanted to savor it.
Let it breathe a
little bit before I dive into the second one. I highly recommend this. If you love historical time periods, this takes place in New York. If you like things that have a little bit of like a traditional folkloric vibe mixed in there, this is really a good one. I love this. I gave this one 5 stars. I don't know if I reviewed it yet on Goodreads, but I plan to. I thought it was beautiful.
All right, cool.
So Golem and the Jinni.
Nice.
Done and dusted.
All right, mine next done and dusted that I'm going to talk about is another nonfiction for Nonfiction November. It's
Does this take us to the tawdry things that you like to read? Is this one of those?
No.
Oh, we're gonna get there. Don't worry.
This is The Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. He's the guy who wrote the author of The Wager, which I've read and loved. I knew it was about Native Americans, and but it wasn't a story. I when I read the back, I realized, it's not the story I thought it was. I thought it was more like old, like
you didn't realize it was taking place in the
1920s. Yeah, and then it was about killings, and so
killings.
More killings. This is, again, 2 books for Nonfiction November are all about killings, true crime.
It's either killings or sex.
And it's yeah, that's what I love. But no, this is a look at a series of killings that are happening to specific group, the Osage
Nation, the Osage, Oklahoma.
Yeah, of Oklahoma. They've settled into this spot that no one thought was valuable, and then they strike up a deal with the U.S. government for the mineral rights of their ground. Well, just so happens Oklahoma has a lot of oil in it, and this Osage area, the county, is oil rich, and immediately these natives become the wealthiest people in the country, basically.
And one thing leads to another, and they get taken advantage of.
Yeah, they're going to get taken advantage of, and the white settlers that were living amongst them realize, hey, we could do our part to maybe find a way to get our hands on their monies because we don't think they deserve it.
By doing murders?
By doing the murdering.
By doing murdering.
And so this is a story about kind of trying to figure out who is doing the murders, and also at the same time telling a story about kind of the birth of what is now the modern day FBI after J. Edgar Hoover kind of takes over.
Because he gets involved in this.
He doesn't specifically get involved because he stays in Washington, but he sends his people out, and they kind of crack the crime. At least that's what they think. They crack a part of it, but really what this is just when you realize this was more widespread. It wasn't just one person or one conspiracy. There was multiples, and there was far more deaths than they really kind of officially count that were happening because of this. The Osage don't have really any oil money anymore because all the oil derricks have dried up, and they're still being kind of taken advantage of in some ways. If you read the book, you'll see what I mean.
It says they infiltrated the last remnant of the Wild West, and together with the Osage began to expose one of the most chilling conspiracies in American history, and that's referring to the FBI and a Texas Ranger named Tom White.
At first, when I started reading it, I thought it was not as good as The Wager, or at least, but then I realized, you know what, this is the style he writes in. It kind of takes a little bit to build up the story. I also like that there's a lot of pictures in there that kind of show who they're talking about in the different situations, because it's relatively closer to our time period as a historical nonfiction book. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. 5 stars from me. A surprise.
That's not uncommon. Even when he says things like it takes a little while to get into it, it's not really.
But I enjoyed it.
5 stars. Okay, so we're gonna do this thing now because Brandon has like 87 other finished books that he's read. I've already gone through all of my finished books since we've met last, so he's gonna just hold them up.
Rapid fire.
This is gonna be fast.
Machine gun style.
Machine gun Brandon.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Yeah. So, Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. I read this when Taylor started Salem's Lot. Vampires, whiny vampires in 1800s. Not my favorite. It wasn't. I'm not gonna read any of her other stuff. I don't like it.
Okay. All right. Next.
Okay. All right. We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. Love this story. It's about the kind of this weird family that live in this really nice house that some weird, mysterious thing has happened to the family beforehand, before you start reading this. And the village of people that live around them don't like them. They don't like the village. Really fun, really cool.
How many stars?
Kind of creepy. I gave it 5. Yeah. Next one is Nosferatu by Joe Hill.
Who is the
son of Stephen King.
Son of Stephen King.
Yeah. This book is amazing. I love it.
Vampires?
Kind of. Just, so good. It's terrifying. It's gruesome. And it's just amazing. I love it. All right. Next one I read, this is Prey. Oh, this book is fun. It's fast-paced. It's telling the story of like an outbreak of this, what is it? Nanoparticle virus thing that gets out, and it's going to potentially could wreck the world. Yep. And it's the story of how this guy has to kind of not only figure out how to keep it from happening, but also save his like family kind of thing. Right. So really kind of cool and compelling and fun. 5 stars. So
we're now moving into a segment of the podcast or the video that I would like to call Brandon's Smutty Book Club. Yeah. Because for whatever reason, there's a very common theme of a thread that connects a lot of the books that you read. It's either sex or murder.
Right. Yeah.
Or nonfiction. Yeah. I can see that's okay. Here we go.
So before I get to the audiobook, I did read this for spooky season in October, In the Miso Soup by...
Don't get too close to the cover. We'll lose our monetization.
By Ryu Murakami. This is a Japanese thriller that just talks about like the sex worker industry in Japan. I did enjoy it. It's not my favorite. It's gruesome at the end. All the lead up is kind of just like eerie and weird. But I mean, there's for being like set in the sex worker thing, there's not a lot of like sex or smut or anything. There's a little bit of it at the end, but
and then it becomes gruesome. So when the smut comes in, the gruesome stuff comes in. See, that's not. That's
it's bad. I listened to Neon Gods. I can't remember the author's name.
Of course you can.
Katie Roberts, maybe.
So just a woman.
Yeah, and I knew going in that this was like one of those like kind of like spicy novels, right? But it's set around like Greek mythology.
Were there any maple bars? Are they all those like fancy kind of donuts? I want a bite. Of this donut.
Yeah, so I knew going in that it was kind of like a spicy novel that was maybe bordering on a little bit of erotica, but I knew that it also had a tie-in with the Greek mythology, and having just read Stoneblind and being a history teacher that has taught Greek mythology and Roman, I know it. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna read it, see what it's all about. But these they're not gods. They just have the same names. They're more like leaders of this town of Olympus. Okay. It's very loosely based on that. It's just the names. It becomes very apparent that this is not just spicy. It's full blown like erotica, but tied up in like a fun like Greek mythology story. So it's hot. It's really up there with some of the descriptions, and I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna say I didn't. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a hot-blooded man, right?
He is.
But I gave it 4 stars just because.
Woo, you were wiping your brow, I feel like.
Yeah. But it was fun. Right.
Okay, so we're gonna move into bookmarks. These are books that we are currently reading.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go first. I don't have a lot to say because I just started this.
Same.
I'm trying to figure out what book I want to read right now, and I feel like I'm in that place where, like, I feel pulled to read The Shining. I really do, but I feel like I've been putting it off. For I don't know why. And then I want to read the Golem and the Jinni second book. I don't know. So I was in between all these things, and so I decided to crack into this book that I've had on the shelf for a while. This is called The Kingdoms by Natasha Pulley. I picked this up because it sounded somewhat compelling. And it says, for the fans of The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by David Mitchell, which I have not read, a genre-bending, time-twisting alternative history that asks whether it's worth changing the past to save the future, even if it costs you everyone you've ever loved. And I just started. It's definitely got a little bit of a time travel thing going on. I'm having a little bit of a hard time really biting into it because I feel so it's got a premise that is fascinating to me, and I love that. But I'm having a hard time committing to it because I feel like there was something that happened in the beginning, and it felt like a real big like missed opportunity or a plot hole, or I just didn't love the way that it happened. And so it's kind of sticking with me. But I don't think it's a huge problem. Okay. I feel like maybe I'm being a little overly critical of this particular part because I'm just having a hard time, like, I don't know, latching onto this one. And so I think I am going to pick up The Shining. Just like talking about it makes me realize, like, why wouldn't I just start reading it? Yeah. I'm so curious. So that might be the case. But so far, I do enjoy what I think is going to be a really interesting premise. I'm only on page 52. So I just started this. So that is The Kingdoms by Natasha Pulley. It gets good reviews on Goodreads. So there's that. Okay,
cool. All right, my bookmarked. I only have one right now. Usually I have two on the go, but one right now.
And it's a library book.
Yeah, I got it. Oh, it was a library book. Chain Gang All Stars. And I'm gonna try my best with the author's name. Nana Kwame Ajay Brenna. It's a kind of a story about a futuristic America that has a prison system that is now using their kind of like their death row inmates or their murderers compete in gladiatorial style games.
As like a spectator event?
As a spectator event. Civilians. And film, you can watch it, becomes this new, they call it hard action sports. They like move their way up. They can earn their freedom and be free and be set free. And so you're kind of following along a couple characters here that are on the same chain. They call them a chain gang. You know, in this story, the two main characters are two of the best fighters at the time. It's a different style of story writing where you're kind of jumping around from things and you're seeing it build up. And I think it's kind of building on something that's going to kind of be at the end that's going to be, oh, wow, I didn't expect that to happen. But it's also kind of one of those, you can tell that it's a critical look at our modern American prison system. The more people that get put into prison, the more profit the people running the prison or are investing in the prisons can make. And you know,
is that true?
Yeah, there's an element of that because prisons are run privately. But yeah, it's good, and I'm enjoying it. Cool. So yeah,
I thought it was a really interesting concept. The whole idea of like prison inmates fighting to death,
it's brutal the way they kind of talk about it. Yeah. So all right. So that's bookmarked for us, right?
Yeah, bookmarked.
So we're done.
Okay. We do have compelling pickups, though.
Yeah, we have compelling
pickups. We each have one compelling pickup. We were in Boulder City recently, which is a town outside of Henderson where we live here.
25 minutes.
Pretty close to Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah.
And it's where the Hoover Dam is and Lake Mead and all of that.
Yeah.
And we were there, and they have a really cute like downtown area with lots of antique shops. And there's one antique shop in particular that we love to check out where they have really awesome used books, obviously.
Yeah.
So if you're ever in the area in Boulder City, check it out.
They
have so much stuff. Yeah. And so you were looking on a bookshelf, and you happened to find yours first. So do you want to share yours first?
Sure. I found Pompeii, the Life of a Roman Town by Mary Beard.
Turn it in front of my eye. There you go.
There you go.
Oh, it's upside down. Okay.
There you go. And it's the Folio Society version of it, and which is cool because I don't think this is in print anymore. Taylor has read all those like those books about Pompeii. What were they?
The Wolf Den.
The Wolf Den series, yeah.
Oh my gosh, which I love.
So, and I'm, a history teacher, and I love Roman history as well. Mm-hmm. And Mary Beard is a great, teller of stories of Roman history.
And the Folio Society they're like an independent publisher, right? Like what they do is they take books and they republish them with like different bindings. They'll sometimes have like artwork made specifically for that particular edition, and it's all very like high quality, beautiful paper, color, like glossy images. Which you have a lot of that in here. It's just a beautiful book.
That's really, and I saw it on the shelf, and it was a good price.
Yeah, they're usually very expensive.
Yeah, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna hop on that.
Yeah, I mean, how much did you end up paying for this?
I think that was $30,
which it's
normally
like
go for
$90
to $95.
$65 to $95. Yeah. Well, how much was this one originally when it was new?
I think like that around that price. I don't know for sure because I could only find like Amazon like resells or eBay listings.
Right.
I think sometimes they bring it back and put it on and I could be wrong, but $30 for
it's
a
brand
folio
new.
society. Yeah, it had the hard
The
case
box,
for it too.
It's got a big old map
Yeah,
of Pompeii in the front.
really cool.
Such a
So
cool looking book.
it's one of those ones you want to put on your bookshelf to display, and so that's why we got it.
Yeah, it was awesome. And while he saw that one, I saw this one. Now, this is a Folio Society edition as well. It doesn't have the box with it, but other than that, the book is in brand new condition. This is The House of Seven Gables by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Now, this, look at the backside. I mean, it's such a cool book. So this is a story by Nathaniel Hawthorne, kind of like a gothic. I think I've never read this before, but it's got the, spooky vibes. It's about an old family who lives in Salem, Massachusetts. And we actually visited. I'll pop a picture up of us and our family outside of the house's Seven Gables.
Yeah, we've been there twice now.
We have. And it's a book I've wanted to read because I just feel like it's got those like spooky gothic vibes.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a ghost story. I don't really know all the details about it, but it just sounds really interesting, and I'd like to give it a read. But when I saw this, I thought
it's also a Folio Society edition.
it's Folio
got
Society.
pictures.
It's got illustrations, like really beautiful illustrations on the inside that are color and glossy.
Yeah.
And I'm
And you were able to pick this up for like $25 because it didn't have the hard
yes,
shell
because
case.
it doesn't have the hard box. I got this one for $25.
And this one's not in print anymore either.
Can't get this one. Yeah. This one's not in print anymore. And when it was, I think it was quite pricey. But yeah, so I'm really excited about this, and I do kind of want to give it a try at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember I started reading this before we went to Boston
Yeah,
the
I think I
first time.
remember that.
I started, but I couldn't get into it because I think it was just a time when I wasn't
Right.
really as much of an adventurous reader, if you will. So yeah, so those are our compelling pickups.
Yeah, now we got quote of the day.
Quote of the
You have one, I have one.
day. I have to pull mine up because I have it as a
right.
picture. I took a photo of it while I was reading.
Yeah.
So
And I have mine
bear
written
with me.
down in my reading journal.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, so my quote of the day comes from Nosferatu, as I kind of mentioned when I went over those books.
The Joe Hill book.
The Joe Hill book. So this kind of comes towards the end of the book. The main character's kind of just processing stuff and thinking about things. So it goes, the difference between childhood and adulthood, Vic had come to believe, was the difference between imagination and resignation. You traded one for the other and lost your way. And I thought
That's so sad.
Yeah, it's sad, but it really kind of encapsulates what's going on in the story at the time. But it also, you can kind of see that happen in real life as well. You know, our children out there playing, imagining different worlds and just playing. And a lot of times as adults, you kind of lose that a little bit.
It's hard to hard to do it authentically if you play with them.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to get back into that place again.
Yeah.
But there are those moments. There are those like fleeting moments where you can. But that's a really like emotional and tender topic.
Oh yeah.
I think especially for me.
I know.
I was one of those like very imaginative types. I still am in a lot of ways. But like when I was a kid, imagination and play and pretend was so, and it's like that with Angus.
Yeah.
And so I don't ever want to watch that. I don't like the idea of watching that fade.
I know.
That's sad. Okay, wow.
Sorry.
No, that's a great quote. It's great. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, so mine is from Salem's Lot.
Okay.
And in this book, it deals with vampires, but there's also a priest in the story, and he is kind of grappling with like the modern idea of like a priest's place in the world and like their job, right? Because like a priest in the sense of the Catholic Church in this book, that's how it's mentioned, is there to help people deal with the doings of the devil, essentially, right? But it becomes, he's like dealing with the whole thing about how it's no longer so cut and dry, that it's not evil and good. There's so many things in between that kind of get in the way, and the things that were considered evil become personified in the people that are living, like, you know, Hitler, or, you know, people that you would consider evil, right?
Yeah.
And Hitler comes to mind, and it's mentioned in the quote.
Okay.
And so he's talking about that because he's dealing with what's going on in this town, which is like, if it's true, if he's like thinking, if this is real, this is a physical representation of true evil in the classic sense. Kind of hard to explain. Okay. So pardon me while I read this section because I thought it was really interesting. He, when it says he, it's referring to the priest. He wanted this struggle to be pure, unhindered by the politics that rode the back of every social issue like a deformed Siamese twin. He had wanted all this since he had wanted to be a priest, and that call had come to him at the age of 14, when he had been inflamed by the story of St. Stephen, the first Christian martyr, who had been stoned to death and who had seen Christ at the moment of his death. Heaven was a dim attraction compared to that of fighting and perhaps perishing in the service of the Lord. But there were no battles, there were only skirmishes of vague resolution, and evil did not wear any face but many, and all of them were vacuous, and more often than not, the chin was slicked with drool. In fact, he was being forced to the conclusion that there was no evil in the world at all, but only evil. And so in the actual text here, evil in the first instance is all capitalized, and the second instance is all lowercase. So there's no evil in the world at all, but only evil. Or perhaps, in parentheses, lowercase, evil. At moments like this, he suspected that Hitler had been nothing but a harried bureaucrat and Satan himself a mental defective with a rudimentary sense of humor, the kind that finds feeding firecrackers wrapped in bread sequels unutterably funny. I just thought it was really interesting, like an interesting outlook.
Good take, or interesting take on.
Yeah, especially like a priest who's about to venture into the world of like vampires.
Vampirism.
Yeah, vampires. Yeah, so that was mine. That was from Salem's Lot. I love that one.
Cool.
So, yeah.
And that's it?
That's it for us. That was good. We did it. We made it through with all of the interruptions. We did it. And that's good.
Yeah.
Nicely done, babe.
All right. So cool.
Yeah. Well, hope you guys are doing well and enjoying.
And we're happy to be back.
Yeah, we are so happy to be back. We've in the time that we've been away, we've been trying to figure out what is a good schedule for us to work on so we can be consistent with our videos.
Try to get these more consistent.
Yeah, we're hoping to get one a week. That's our plan. And with the way that we have things mapped out, that should be fine.
We'll see.
But you're probably going to have videos where you just have to deal with, a dog and a washing machine and some children from time to time.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
All right.
This is good. Let us know what you guys are reading. Have you been reading any good books lately?
Yeah.
Keep us posted.
Thumbs up if you liked it.
Yeah, like it.
Yeah.
Subscribe it.
And leave those comments of what you're reading, what you've read,
Absolutely.
how you thought.
All right. Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.